The 1964 Ford Thunderbolt Fairlane is not just any old classic car, it's history, a car that dominates and changes the rules on the drag strip. This legend started off as a stock Ford Fairlane and rocketed to fame as an authentic drag racing icon. The Thunderbolt remains one of the holy grails to muscle car fans and collectors. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the Thunderbolt holds such an irreplaceable spot in the Muscle Car Hall of Fame and what makes it one of the most desirable classic cars of all time. So seatbelts on, let's travel back in time to visit Ford's classic bespoke wonder. An era of unmatched competition. The story of the Thunderbolt begins in the early 1960s, during a period when American car companies were in a fierce battle for dominance on the streets and the racetrack. It was the halcyon days of the American performance car, with Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors all vying to create the fastest, meanest, most powerful machine. Drag racing was not a casual activity. It was a way for car companies to show off who had the superior engineering and design. Ford was taking a hit on the drag racing circuit of the early 60s after Chrysler had introduced its fearsome Max Wedge and Hemi engines that were running everywhere on the track. Ford's team took this as a challenge. Losing wasn't an option. Ford had to answer back, and they had to answer big. To build a drag car around a mid-sized model such as the Ford Fairlane was, at the time, daring and extreme. Still, the Fairlane would be the ideal platform. Ford's engineers figured for its light body, practical size, and ample engine compartment. Here, Ford's group went one step further, turning the Fairlane into something much more adventurous, a high-performance road racer that would put Ford on the racing circuit. Design philosophy and development process. Ford wanted it to be invincible. This is where Ford's partnership with Dearborn Steel Tubing Company came into play. Ford hired this company of experts to assist in changing the Fairlane and transforming it into the Thunderbolt. Over a few months, Dearborn Steel Tubing and Ford engineers stripped down the Fairlane, redesigning every aspect that didn't contribute to pure speed. Every mechanical component was fine-tuned and stripped of any pound of unnecessary weight, with the car resculpted to be a performance machine. The Thunderbolt's heart, a 427 cubic inch powerhouse. The engine that truly set the Thunderbolt apart was the 427 Cube FE V8 under its hood. Though officially specified at 425 horsepower, many of the enthusiasts believe it was closer to 500 horsepower, an outrageous number back then. This engine was also no ordinary V8. It was a race engine, one built to endure the heat, the high revolutions per minute, and the pressure of the drag strip. Two Holley 4-barrel carbs on an aluminum intake were used for the 427. These were carburetors selected precisely to accommodate the enormous airflow and fuel mixture required to achieve the highest horsepower. This setup allowed the Thunderbolt the breathing room to rip itself into explosive acceleration off the line. It came equipped with a Borg-Warner T10 4-speed manual for the driver who likes things by hand, or a Lincoln C6 automatic for smooth, blazing fast changes. Fitted with this powertrain, the Thunderbolt would run the quarter mile in 11.6 seconds at 124 miles an hour. Few cars could hope to keep up with the Thunderbolt's blistering acceleration, especially in its superstock class. With its bespoke powertrain, gearbox choices, and performance parts, the Thunderbolt was there to strike fear. The Thunderbolt's engine was certainly impressive, but Ford engineers knew that horsepower wouldn't win races by itself. For the ultimate drag racer, the Thunderbolt would have to weigh nothing. Lightness was the royal shortcut to speed and handling, and Ford pulled out all the stops to make the Thunderbolt as light as possible. To do this, the team swapped out standard steel bodywork for fiberglass panels. Fiberglass replaced metal on the hood, front fenders, and trunk lid, and all of them weighed a fraction of what the originals did. Plexiglass took the place of the heavier glass in the windows, making the car even lighter without sacrificing driver visibility. Ford's relocation of the battery to the boot also helped to balance the car further, adding traction to the rear wheels off the line. Inside, the Thunderbolt was equally stripped down. Ford deprived it of all comfort and pursued velocity. Its seats were salvaged from Ford's Econoline van, where in lieu of comfort they provided light seating. Gone were the radio, air conditioning, heater, and even the passenger side sun visor. The cabin of the Thunderbolt was utilitarian and Spartan, built for speed and speed alone, with no thought for daily living or human comfort. It took more than a muscular engine to manage all that power. It needed a solid base and an expertly tuned suspension. Ford engineers also looked closely at the Thunderbolt's frame and suspension configuration so the car could withstand the massive stresses experienced during a drag run. Its rear suspension consisted of unbalanced leaf springs intended to minimize wheel hop on launches. Ford also installed traction bars to stop the rear wheels from coming off the ground when accelerating, as that would cause a loss of traction and stability. Reinforced front suspension components, upgraded brakes, and a custom exhaust system completed the Thunderbolt's performance package. The exhaust was free air all the way. It wasn't showy or ornamental, but it allowed the engine to run at maximum efficiency. The matched exhaust system, heavy-duty suspension, and stiffened chassis allowed the Thunderbolt to handle in a shockingly decent fashion, and it proved to be one of Ford's most desirable race cars. The Thunderbolt's triumph on the drag strip. When the Thunderbolt finally hit the drag strip, it proved Ford's total performance program was more than just marketing. It was real. When it came out in 1964, the Thunderbolt quickly became a force in the NHRA and AHRA Superstock classes. Fueled by the likes of racing heroes Ronda, Phil Bonner, and Dick Brannan, the Thunderbolt went on a winning streak that left opponents awestruck. In its debut season, the Thunderbolt achieved an almost mythic status on the track. It was nearly unbeatable with its aggressive styling, lightweight, and snarling V8. The Thunderbolt's appearance on the strip forced other automakers to up the ante, igniting the muscle car arms race of the 1960s. The Thunderbolt didn't just dominate in its time, it left an enduring legacy. Although Ford built just 100 Thunderbolts, this small production run meant that this would be one of the rarest and most coveted American muscle cars of all time. The Thunderbolt's price tag was $3,780 originally. A lot of money then, too, and no small part of that was due to its stripped-down, track-oriented build. Today, pristine Thunderbolts go for well over $250,000 on the auction floor and more for the mint. That's a daunting task in itself, bringing a Thunderbolt back to stock specs, given the small number of them made and the racing-minded modifications. The vast majority of these vehicles were driven hard, raced frequently, and occasionally wrecked, so surviving examples are incredibly rare. Collectors treat the Thunderbolt as a holy grail of American muscle cars, the true article in drag racing history, a shrine to Ford's engineering and racing ambitions. The 1964 Ford Thunderbolt Fairlane is more shrine than a motor car, a monument to an American age of engineering long past. Born from a fierce rivalry built with a single-minded focus on speed and driven by some of the best racers of its time, the Thunderbolt stands as one of the most iconic vehicles in drag racing history. It is the steely determination of innovation, a commitment to utter functionality, and the legacy of an era when manufacturers made cars for pure, unadulterated horsepower. The Thunderbolt is a muscle car legend, a reminder of what happens when car makers go all the way in the name of speed. Ford built this car to be a winner, and it was a winner, cementing its place in history books as one of the greatest cars of all time. And if you've liked the history and power of the Thunderbolt, give us a like, a subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. Write to us in the comments section below about what car you'd like to see us cover next. And until next time, keep the engines roaring, and thanks for watching.